Let's go ahead and check this debate out.
You get the first opening statement tonight. Root, studio audience, folks watching at home, I am so grateful to be here. My name is Abdul Al-Sayed. I'm a doctor. I became a doctor because I go 15 minutes from where I grew up and travel a difference of 10 years difference in life expectancy. Instead of practicing clinically, I went into public health, rebuilt Detroit's health department, led Wayne County's Department of Health, Human and Veteran Services. We did things like put glasses on kids, took on corporate polluters, made sure that our kids weren't breathing the worst coming out of smokestacks, and eliminated medical debt. But I'm running because it just shouldn't be this hard. I've been down to 110 different cities, 475 public events. I could go to a living room in Lansing. I could be in a church in Detroit. No matter where I go, people tell me, I need to be able to afford my groceries. I need to be able to afford my gas. I need to be able to see a doctor when I get sick. My friend is going to frame this race about me and her. It's not about that. It's about you. It's about what you deserve. It's about you deserving a politics that's not bought off by the same corporations picking your pocket at every single turn. I'm looking forward to the conversation about how we get money out of politics, put money in your pocket, and pass Medicare for all.
Thank you, Dr. Abdul Al-Sayed. Next up, Congresswoman Hailey Stevens, you have 1 minute for your opening statement tonight.
Well, thank you to everyone tuning in tonight. As we know, the stakes of this race couldn't be higher. Costs continue to go up. Our health care, voting rights, civil rights, it's all on the line, in addition to Social Security and Medicare. And if Mike Rogers wins this race, all goes by the wayside.
So she's saying it all goes by the wayside, even though Abdul Al-Sayed is more progressive on pushing for Medicare for all, for Social Security protections. Like, literally the reason he jumped in this race is because he wants to protect those things, but somehow if he gets in, those things won't be protected, but if she gets in, she will protect them. I guess maybe because she's the establishment candidate, that she's going to make the argument that she would be more effective at protecting them because she knows how the game works. But that just doesn't pan out when you look at the funding sources for her campaign, because she's taken, let's look at Open Secret. This, for anybody who's curious, is website devoted to looking at candidates as they run for office and where there's funding. So they'll look at everybody's funding source. One sec, cat's scratching. Hi, Miss Diva. So they look at how much was raised, how much was spent, and where it came in from. We're looking at 26, 10 mil raised, 7 mil spent, mostly from large individual countries, which would be somehow separated out from PACs, but a lot of these are kind of masking. So here we go. Organizations. American Israeli Public Affairs, literally AIPAC. First one, $250,000. And she's saying how Abdul Al-Sayed not going to protect you, and yet she's taking that kind of money. So 28, basically $250,000 from just PACs versus a total of 38,000 from PACs. So an order of magnitude difference here. Whereas these PAC contributions are ideological and single use. Most of them come Democratic Leadership PAC, Liberal, and Rib, and then unions. A lot from unions. Yeah, so most of his funding, most of his media appearance is just because he's a charismatic guy. He goes on free podcasts, things like that. Places where people are actually tuning in, as well as just touring the state, and from progressive caucuses, and even his PAC money are just from progressives. So No Democrat Left Behind, Medicare for All, Progressive Voter, Rooted in Community. So the funding and difference couldn't be more night and day between the two. This is just specifically of all of it, though. Yeah, because he raised a considerable. Here we go. So he's also having large cap individuals taking the majority, small cap individuals less than 200, taking a larger portion than Stevens, and PACs taking a third position. Compared to Stevens, where this was so if we look mostly physicians, which makes a lot of sense given that he was a doctor, probably a lot of physicians backing him with individual contributions, especially because they're going to be more wealthy. Whereas Hailey Stevens, if we look at the individual, oh, that's cool. Breakdown. Or apples to apples. Yeah, that's what I thought. Most of hers coming from California. Is some of it coming from California? I guess they're pretty. All right, I jumped the gun on that one. Pretty equal on that part. Then small, large dollar donations. Really stop at 7,000? Like they would have done more. Thing. Yeah. Like I said, this pack donations should tell you basically the story that you need to hear, which is 38,000 versus 1.4 million. When you're taking donations from a bunch of individuals versus PACs, that's going to make a huge difference on how people govern. I mean, you look at the decisions they make, and here's the thing that nobody ever talks about with dark money and everything, is whether or not you actually make decisions based on those contributions, which is exactly quid pro quo, and it's exactly why these PACs donate. They are buying something. They want this person in office because they want a political outcome that they can't get without buying off someone in politics. And so they're looking for a specific instance to come out of it. But what people don't understand, too, a lot of times is even if you don't do that, now you've put the perception out there because you've accepted their money, because you need it as essentially a way of winning the campaign that you thought you wouldn't win. The thing to think about is, why does she need all this extra money from corporations? It's to shore up, to be able to launch attack ads versus El Sayed, to make up for the fact that he is overwhelmingly popular with regular people, and that he gets himself out there and he's more charismatic. He's more in the savvy. So she's essentially just using it to prop up the fact that she's running a bad campaign. And every time she props it up, she's getting bought off with another policy, another sign off on something like the NDAA that we just saw a couple days ago, where we were releasing more money to the Pentagon so that they can give it to Israel and intertwine our intelligence agencies even more. This is signing off on more deregulation for corporations, things like that. Whenever you see these high numbers for PAC, that's what you should be thinking is, this is high because every one of these dollars is helping pay for some policy that's going to hurt our regulations. And keep in mind, this is in Michigan. Flint is in Michigan. They have seen what bad regulations can do to people and how they can directly hurt the citizens in that and the working class in that state with their water issues during Obama's years.
Look, Michigan deserves a senator who can win and who can deliver. I'm the only one on this stage.
Yeah, that's why a lot of Republicans are backing Hailey Stevens, because they really think she can win. They think she's a real winner out there.
Who has flipped a Republican seat, and I was named Michigan's most effective Democratic lawmaker in Congress because my only focus is you. Abdul.
Who named her the most effective? Because as far as I know, she just signed on with the CHIPS Act under Biden and basically did like blase agreed with the Democratic policies that were already going to pass through the Congress. As far as I know, she didn't propose a lot of her own bills or do much to persuade people from the other side. She would just essentially fill the Democratic seat.
Is running for celebrity. Republicans are propping up his campaign. And Mike Rogers just the other day said in a secret phone call that he makes it easier for him to win, that he's the one he wants to run against. Look, this isn't about the DC or New York influencer crowd. This is about putting Michigan first, and I've got the receipts to do that, which is why Governor Whitmer and so many others are joining my campaign to win in November.
Congresswoman Dr. Al-Sayed, thank you both for your opening statements. Listen, just want to give you an idea of how we're going to do things a little bit differently from other debates where perhaps it's a little more formalized. This is going to be a conversation where I'm the moderator. I'll ask you questions. The time cues will be given by me. No clocks here. So let's go, and we'll begin with this. So many people have questions about affordability. It's the number one thing we hear about from people. What are they doing in Washington to make sure that life is more affordable for me? Dr. Al-Sayed.
Yeah, so here's some of the things that she did. Reproductive rights, which is good. Squatter eviction, so help getting landlords to be able to kick people out. And this was it's 2025. So Twister Act did pass. Oh no, the Shield Act is different than what God, dude, never trust AI. It's so Strategic Homeland Information Act. Guard against so some real basic protections. The first progressive thing I've seen her do. Reaffirming her commitment to proud auto workers, build jobs, strengthens domestic auto. I'm really curious how this is done with the auto protection. The other two bills are pretty blasé, like Democratic bills. Nothing I wouldn't expect from any and all four of the bills that she's put in. Oh no, this crossed over. Like everything she's done is in committee. Look at these. Dude. Look at this. Most effective legislature, and you look at the progress on the bills, and I don't see a single one that is passed. The only thing is crossed over, which I assume means they crossed over to the other branch of Congress. But like, most effective senator here apparently is one that does absolutely nothing, which, to be fair, I guess is in line with what happens with our Congress. I can't fault her too much. She's not wrong on that. It just doesn't mean anything really when War Powers Resolution Act in Lebanon voted nay. She's voting against restraining the Trump administration from allowing hostilities in Lebanon from our wonderful ally Israel. Drawn us into another. So if you're wondering, where those Lockheed Martin dollars go, right here. It's these nay votes right here where she's agreeing. She's going to be the one or two Democrats that pushes this over the edge to be a no. And she's just going to help with like one or two key bills. She's going to toe the line enough to try and stay in office. Then she's going to say either yay or nay voting with the Republicans on a few key bills, help push stuff through based on who gave her money during her. And that's just what you should expect from people who are bought and paid for by corporations.
What are you doing that's something that perhaps we haven't heard before in Washington that's different to keep the cost of living down?
So let me just tell you, for me, I don't take money from the corporation.
What are you doing that's different? Literally anything, because they're doing nothing right now. Trump has said affordability, nobody cares about that. What does that even mean?
Corporations who are jacking up your prices in the first place. When you're bought off by DTE and Blue Cross and Big Pharma and Big Tech and APAC, don't be surprised that there's a pro quo that comes with that quid. That money doesn't just fall off trees. $60 million from outside organizations in this race.
A good line.
Nowhere. It's because those exact same organizations expect something on the other side, and that's that they get to expect to own your next U.S. senator. So it starts with being able to say, I'm the only candidate in this race who doesn't take any money from corporations. Never have, never will. And then from there, I actually can stand up to them. I can do things like enforce our antitrust policies that haven't been enforced. I can do things like tax billionaires their wealth so we can take that money and invest it in you and your kids, in your schools. I can do things like make sure that rather than sending your money somewhere else to drop bombs on other people and their kids, we can keep that money here at home. And just in case you don't believe me, just think about this. Just last week, our friend here voted to send $3.3 billion of your tax dollars to a foreign government. That is the pro quo that comes with the quid of $30
He's talking about the
million
NDAA.
spent by AIPAC. So it really comes down to how
The National Defense.
Dr. El-Sayed, thank you. Congresswoman Hailey Stevens, we heard a lot from Dr. El-Sayed. Some of that was about your record in Washington. I want you to be able to address that, but also tell us what you would do to keep the cost of living down.
Yeah, our affordability crisis is choking us out here in Michigan. You know, everywhere I go, if it's at the fish fry in downtown Detroit, or the working single mom who just the other day told me her healthcare costs continue to go up, that the grocery bill is only getting harder. We don't need lip service. We need action. And Abdul's going to talk about where employees from certain corporations are spending their money, but let me tell you about what I am doing.
It's on you.
Because
None of them are
DTE
spending it on
and our
him. That's
utility
kind of the point.
companies are selling out their ratepayers, and I'm giving them an option. I'm saying DTE, either stop raising rates or lose your federal funds. And
Is that before or after she
executive
takes money
pay.
from?
Look, we need proven fighters in these positions. And that is what I have done time and time again. I've got the receipts to show it.
Look at
This
her
is
in air
also why
jail.
Governor Whitmer and A.G. Nessel, you know, two proven fighters who want to see results, have endorsed me in this race, because Michigan, it needs a workhorse in the United States Senate, sleeves rolled up, ready to tackle our problems on day one.
15.
And I'm not just stopping there. Let's lower the
rolled
cost
up.
of
What a,
groceries with my bill. No tariffs
what
on
an
groceries.
establishment
I do
dem
want to
kind
get
of
into the
like
weeds a bit
trope.
with this, because I want to ask you a very direct question that so many people ask us. Are these folks getting money from big utility? Congresswoman Hailey Stevens, are you taking money for your campaign from DT or
Yes, the answer is yes, no matter what she says.
consumers?
No, but let me say this, Roop. I have been transparent. I have been transparent throughout this campaign, and let me just say this, that the only thing that ever motivates my work is the people of Michigan, the people who I hear from. You know, my opponent is on these big podcasts. You know, he's running a podcast himself. These folks are making fun of the way I sound, but yet I sound like the people who need help, who are talking to me about what they need
Congresswoman,
done.
that was a follow-up to ask the direct question, whether you're taking money from utilities
And I
or
said
not.
no.
The answer is no. Thank you. Dr. El-Sayed, I'm asking you the same question. Any money from any
Literally, yes. We can look it up right now. Washington, D.C. based energy biofuel company and poet, which is, I think this is the wrong poet, maybe. Oh, no. Corn. So, like ethanol based ones, as well as gas and utility. DTE. They asked explicitly, is she taking money from DTE? Boom, right here, $7,500 from DTE, $6,000 from CMS Energy. She's literally like, there should be punishments for this. There should be something where, hey, now you get an asterisk on the ballot, and they're going to say you publicly lied to people about, you misrepresented yourself during the campaign, because otherwise you can just continue lying about this, and then until somebody corrects it, there's no consequences, essentially. Which like lying is too strong, dude. It's too strong. And and she learned it from Republicans. Obviously, she's just like taking a page out of their playbook. If you keep lying often enough and you just roll through it, then you get to override it, because people can't fact check fast enough to get the correct information out to all the voters. Like, look at that, dude. That's the smile of somebody who's like, I just got away with a lie. Like, you can see it in her face. We just looked up the counterfactual here. And she's like, yeah, he asked me if I took money from DTE. I said no, but I know that I took like $7,500 from them. It's just, Michigan, don't let her lie to your face. It's fucking disrespectful.
Anyone that we don't know about?
No and never, but then $40,000 in direct receipts to her campaign from DTE's corporate PAC. And then there's
he
Center
hits
for
it.
Democratic Priorities, which released its funders, but then they're behind these shell organizations, these 501c4s. So I'd really like to revisit that question, because I don't know how to explain $40,000 directly to her campaign from DTE. I'm the only candidate in this race who's never touched a dime of corporate PAC money.
I do want to ask both of you about your campaigns respectively when it comes to certain questions that people have. Congresswoman, we'll begin with you, and we'll dive right into that right now. You've heard many people ask the question about AIPAC, and it seems as though on many instances you haven't directly answered the question. Do you see why some people are bothered by the fact that so much money, $40+ million, has come from AIPAC for these PACs to talk about you and to promote you and to put you up as their candidate?
So that's the other thing, is she hasn't even taken money directly. The 40 million she's talking about isn't a direct contribution. A lot of that is coming in the form of them running ads on her behalf without making it a contribution. One other thing to this, every time they bring up AIPAC, why wouldn't you expect Hailey Stevens to take AIPAC money? Hailey Stevens, I dream of Israel. She came out one time and famously did this.
I will continue to fight for the people of Israel. I will continue to fight for Israel's existence. Israel comes to me in my dreams. I see Israel's future, and I know that Israel will continue to exist for the Jewish people.
This is after October 7th, by the way. This is after they've been genociding people for over a year. And she yells, Israel comes to me in my dreams. These are the people who claim to be America first. It's insane. So when she takes AIPAC money, that's just par for the course. That's what I would expect from Hailey Stevens. She literally yells and screams at people at town halls about how she dreams of Israel. Like, it's a crackpot. The fact that it's even a toss-up just tells you how much money is pouring into this race, and it's not for Abdul al-Sayed from the Democratic establishment and corporation side. So if you want a candidate that is for people and not for corporations, follow the money and then vote against the PAC money, the corporation money.
Yeah, and I
Pretty safe bet on
appreciate
that usually.
the question, Root, because this moment in this country and here in Michigan, people have every right to be frustrated about our campaign finance system. My opponent here on this stage, Abdul, he's got a super PAC that his father-in-law funds that has millions of dollars going into it. And look, in terms of foreign policy, Abdul and I do differ. I believe in a two-state solution. He has attacked me by name for purporting that the people...
He doesn't, by the way. Like, anybody who purports this kind of emphasis for Israel, they don't believe in a two-state solution. They just know that a two-state solution is the best cover, because at this point, there can't be a two-state solution. It's just not feasibly possible. They want to have that as their backup so that Israel can keep committing a genocide. That's essentially just an easy cover for Democrats who are Zionists. Say, oh yeah, I want them to be independent so that Israel can keep bombing and destroying their neighbor. Because they know that if they were to consolidate them into one state, that would mean the end of a Jewish ethno-state, and it would have to become a true democracy if it was going to represent all of the people in that area and not just the Jewish people with majority control who have been using it as a personal ethnos, essentially. So the only reason that they're not pro one-state solution is because of that, which, ironically used to be the policy of like Republicans who wanted a one-state solution because they wanted this genocide to happen so that they could consolidate into one state, purely the Jewish state. But now it's used as cover, essentially, because it's become politically like expedient essentially to do that rather than trying to argue for the one state solution while the genocide is actively going on. Because when you say one state solution, people now understand what that means. Like the mask is off. So it's not surprising her position, but it is kind of useless information.
Palestine and the people of Israel deserve to live side by side peacefully. The goal is always long-term peace. And also, the Prime Minister of Israel
putting
has
on the smile while you're saying
name.
stuff
They
about this
both
genocide, it's just
represent
psychotic.
the extremes.
I know
Look,
that that's her like consultants telling her to do that, but that's crazy.
Michiganders want peace. They deserve to see peace, and that is where I have always cast my vote, and that is the work that I want to do for Michigan in the U.S. Senate.
Specifically about AIPAC money, more than $46 million has been spent on AIPAC spending to back your campaign. A lot of people wonder if that is something where you're going to do their bidding should you win this seat. Is that something people should be concerned about? And if not, why not?
Absolutely not, Roop. Look, I have been very clear, consistent, and transparent, and I have continued to be. I want to see long-term peace. I want to see a two-state solution. I am deeply proud to represent one of the largest Jewish populations in a congressional district in the country. This is a community that I have grieved alongside, that I've mourned alongside, and have fought to bring the hostages home. And
So she's grieved alongside the Jewish community, mourned alongside the Jewish community, and fought to bring the hostages home. What about the Palestinian community that has had, by the way, if you look at the numbers, killed in Israel on October 7th. We're talking about 1,200 people. And if we look at rough estimates for how many Palestinians have been killed since October 7th, we're talking about like an October 7th a day, 73,000. So about, let's say, 60 times the amount of people who have died. And yet the focus is on the one instance of October 7th, leaving aside the fact that, by the way, Hamas was funded by Israel from the jump. They funded them over the more passive section of the Palestinian, I guess, government that they had in place to overthrow that government because they wanted a more adversarial party in Palestine to justify what they're doing right now.
Still working to get us to long-term peace.
But no concern about the $46 million plus spent on the behalf of AIPAC that should worry people about perhaps you doing their bidding should you win the seat?
Well, I don't think there's much difference between
Good on this interviewer, by the way. He's killing it.
super PACs going in for Abdul or super PACs going in for me. We have a problem with campaign finance reform.
Yeah, don't mind the super PACs going in for him, the tiny amount for him and the huge amount for me. Let's just look over super PACs. It's fine.
In this country, I have an A grading from End Citizens United. I have been endorsed by Defend the Vote. I have voted consistently, and I'm going to stop Mike Rogers from getting anywhere close to the United States Senate, which is why he doesn't want to run against me, and which is why somebody like Governor Whitmer is supporting me in this race.
Congresswoman Stevens, thank you. I want to give some equal time here to Dr. El-Sayed, and specifically, I want to talk to you a little bit about this geopolitical weight that we all feel in this community, which is about the Israel-Palestine issue. It obviously has colored this election greatly. It colors the Democratic Party. How do you see yourself moving forward should you become a senator here, handling the situation with Iran, Israel, and Hamas?
So I just want to say the difference between us is $46 million of AIPAC spending. They've set a record in this race to help elect my opponent because they know that she'll be a reliable vote, just like she took last week to send your tax dollars to a foreign government that is aiding, arming, and abetting the very people who want to foreclose on the possibility of Palestinian self-determination. Look, at the end of the day, my job is to take care of you here. I want to be your U.S. Senator. I want your tax dollars spent in Michigan to provide schools in Michigan, to build health care in Michigan, to build roads in Michigan. And I think that money sent over there to kill kids and women is the worst use of our tax dollars. And yet, that's exactly what $46 million in spending will buy you. And I believe deeply that we have a responsibility to make sure that,
which, if you look at it from AIPAC's perspective, is a pittance. You know, you spend $46 million. They just got back in the NDAA, $300 million. So they buy off a couple of seats like this, and then they can get that money directly back, let alone, what they get in other benefits from Congress allowing the U.S. to continue this war, which, by the way, it's always been Congress that declares war. So the fact that they are not reining in the military is on Congress, which is part of why they really want these seats. They don't want a Democratic majority that would be able to rein in Israel.
we don't make other people's problems worse. So I believe in equal rights to peace, dignity, and self-determination for Palestinians and Jewish Israelis alike. I believe that we should not be fighting stupid wars that AIPAC wants us to fight in the first place. And I believe we have a responsibility to keep our money here, to invest here. That really is the difference. We're being outspent in this race 12-1. Chances are you're going to see an ad, probably 2 of them, on behalf of AIPAC for my opponent in the next commercial break. That's what that buys you, lying about a record around President Obama's endorsement or lying about me and my character. But that's exactly what happens when you stand up and say, maybe Palestinians should have rights too, and maybe we should have rights to our tax dollars here at home.
Dr. Al-Sayed,
yeah, great thing to do, especially because they're probably going to take a commercial break here in a minute. Now they're about 15 minutes into it, to reframe her ads that are being bought up by corporations, so that when people see them, they understand what money is behind those ads being run.
I'm going to give Congresswoman a chance to respond, as you made a couple of accusations there about her record. Go ahead, Congresswoman.
Well, as I said, I have been transparent, and that is why I have released my full tax returns, and Abdul still hasn't. We need to ask him, what's he hiding? What are the Republicans going to uncover in the general election that they will use against him?
One thing to note is the same PACs that are funding her campaign were also funding Roger's campaign. So if she wins, they win, and suddenly the people who are doing the majority of the funding in her campaign have no reason to fund her anymore, because they don't care whether she wins or he wins. Both of them will vote for their political position, in which case, what's the point in them propping up her campaign over his? It would just be throwing money down the drain for them. So she's used way more money than him in this campaign. She has no coffers compared to what he has going into the general. And the people who would fund her campaign have no reason to anymore. So at that point, she's just going to have no money to run against Rogers.
Millionaire in this race.
Like when you talk about electability, it's just not something that's ever thrown out by establishment Dems, because Abdul Al-Sayed is more electable against Rogers than Hailey Stevens.
I have been recognized as an effective Democratic lawmaker who, yes, governs in a clear, consistent way on complex challenges. I am beholden to the people of Michigan, the people who I hear from when I am in the grocery store
the
line.
Corporations that you lied about taking money for, like
the
Energy Corporation.
Asking me how we can address this affordability crisis. And that is what I am doing. That is what I will do on day one. And I have the receipts to prove it. Dana Nessel agrees with me.
Dr. Al-Sayed, I do want to ask you a question about the tone and the tenor of this campaign. It is safe to say that everyone from Washington to Washington Township in Michigan are sick and tired of people pointing fingers, screaming, yelling, and insulting one another. We've seen a lot of that all across the country. Just earlier this week, we heard that there was some kind of a Zoom call in which you had referenced an opponent as ogre on a pike, and so many people took offense to that. And it really pointed to the bigger question about the tone and tenor that you've been accused of having in this campaign. Do you regret any of the comments that you've made? And do you think
he made that comment about Fetterman, by the way,
a more productive and a more substantive tone if we kept those personal slams out?
Look, I took to Twitter last week.
Yeah, we need civility politics in this day and age. It's really been working out super well for Democrats to take the high road with civility politics.
And said that the tone in which people talk about my opponent is unkind. And I asked anybody who supported me to not talk about her that way. In fact, when she got booed on the stage at the Michigan Democratic Party convention, I called her personally and said that that was unkind. My supporters had nothing to do with it, but I don't think that that's the way we want to do politics. I was referring to a guy named John Fetterman, who's a senator from Pennsylvania, who has done terrible things, got elected on.
Like, we're going to sit here and argue about civility politics when he's talking about a guy who is actively funding and supporting a genocide. Like, he's gotten millions of, or not millions, but tens of thousands of people killed with his active support as a U.S. Congressperson. And what, we called him a mean name? Shame on.
A set of values.
Who cares, dude? None of the voters care. Michiganders don't.
And I do think it's important for any senator in Michigan
that's how people talk,
with
honestly.
Folks who are in the U.S. Senate, and if those folks
you're outside
are not
of the
actually
camera.
acting in accordance with what they got elected on, I think it's important for all of us to have an honest opinion about what we're going to do to make sure that our Senate looks like the people it represents. But when we talk about unkindness, I also just want to speak to the fact that on behalf of my opponent, UDP, another name for AIPAC, has been running attack ad after attack ad after attack ad on my character. I'm the father of 2 daughters. I'm raising them to be stronger than any man. My wife is a doctor. My mother was the first tenured professor of engineering at her university. I was raised by strong women. To say that somehow, because I wrote an op-ed 15 years ago about First Lady Michelle Obama, or I ran against Governor Whitmer, that somehow I'm disrespecting anybody is just inconsistent with the truth. So I really think it's important for my opponent to speak to why she thinks it's okay to spend $10 million of AIPAC money coming after my character. I'd love to understand that, because I went on Twitter and I said that those comments are unkind. I'd like to see the same thing.
Congresswoman, we're going to get to some questions from our audience in just a moment, but Congresswoman, I do want to give you a chance to address that civility issue that is lacking severely in American politics. Is this something that the ads that you see on television, whether you paid for them or whether someone else paid for them, do you think they're doing an injustice to voters by just filling the room with
considering that she's run way more attack ads
well,
than him?
Look,
They're
there was
asking
something
him
else
first
that
about
was
civility.
revealed in the phone call that Abdul was mentioning, which is that he said that he's not going to be able to get much done, that he's not focused on policy for the first 2 years that he is in the United States Senate, that he's going to be focused on national politics. Again, Michigan needs a workhorse, and I am offering these ideas.
Policy comes from politics. You convince people to move towards your politics. A lot of his politics or policies wouldn't be supported by the majority. So the idea that he has to move people to his positions to get the things that he wants passed is just how politics works. And she knows that. She's been in Congress for long.
On day one.
Congressman, respectfully,
yes.
I do want to answer the question. It's about civility.
It's about transparent about what is being said here. And look, Abdul's a great.
Yeah. Also, her using the question on civility to attack him personally is, like antithetical to the question. She's basically saying, "No, I don't give a shit about civility," which I don't really care. But if you are one of these like centrist Dems who gets all up in the weeds about civility politics, just realize that she is being uncivil.
Guy, he's a great father. Only he can account for saying that, Whitmer's bought and paid for, or that, no one cares about Debbie Stabenow, or that Mallory McMorrow isn't smart enough. That is certainly on him to respond to,
True,
which we
though.
certainly just did hear from him on that.
Can I respond?
Dr. Al-Sayed, you have a quick minute.
Can I respond by saying,
told you
I
at the
actually
outset
agree with
that
my own
my
position.
opponent was going to make this race about me and her.
Folks are dying from straining on the toilet, and I'm sounding the alarm.
Oh
Watch
my
this.
God, not
Hello,
base.
I'm a paramedic.
But this is about you. This is about whether or not you deserve a politics of the people, by the people, and for the people, or of the corporations, by the
ads
billionaires,
when you
and for
haven't
the special
watched
interests. In an effort to talk about civility, I just took another attack. And I just want you to ask yourself, what is it that you deserve from your politics now? Do you deserve a politician more focused on their opponent because they want to be in a seat? Or do you deserve a politics where we're all asking, how do we actually serve you best? Because that's what I'm focused on here in this debate and been focused on for this entire 15-month campaign that we've been running on.
Well, and thank you for clarifying that you didn't call me an ogre.
No, again, for the record, it was.
Anybody who's heard that call, by the way, it's very obvious that he's talking about Fetterman. You would have to be really stupid to think that he was talking about Hailey Stevens. He says, I think, that she's like a senator during that or something like that. He does say some mean things about her during that call, the private call that he was having, which, like, I've said mean things about politicians when I'm in private as well, so it's not unusual. But the things that he says about her are pretty mundane, pretty neuter. Yeah, but anybody who with half a brain would understand that he was talking about Fetterman there. She's disingenuously trying to use that as a way to attack him so that she can look like she's talking about civility politics, when really she's being uncivil by lying about what he actually said. Because most voters won't have actually heard the call.
Mr. Fetterman, that was
so she's banking on Michiganders'
ignorance. However, I do want to get
which,
to some audience questions
lends
as well.
credence to my point that she
from our studio audience. We want to remind you that we are taking your questions at home as well. Just
she has so much
on your
contempt for
screen
the average
or text it to 248-200-5042. Make sure you tune in at 8 o'clock to stream Fox Local and fox2detroit.com. These candidates will be answering your questions. But right now we begin with Hannah, who is a voter who's here today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. So, what I wanted to ask was, compared to neighboring states, Michigan consistently ranks among one of the worst for power reliability and rate affordability. As hotter summers and severe storms strain our infrastructure, what federal policies or grid investment standards will you champion to ensure Michigan residents get reliable, affordable
Haley Stevens
power?
will champion none.
Congresswoman Haley Stevens for an answer on that.
Yeah, well, and Hannah, thank you so much for asking such an important
She'll say whatever she needs to get
question
elected.
to so many Michiganders.
Won't
It
do
has
it.
been deeply frustrating to see Donald Trump get rid of the clean energy tax credits. It has been deeply frustrating to see our utility bills go up and up and
Not
up.
that you
These
could have done
companies
anything
do
about it.
not
Oh,
care
no.
about the ratepayers, and they are selling us out. I am not offering lip service to this issue.
She acts like she hasn't been in Congress this entire time. Oh, darn, it's too bad that they did these things. We can double check her votes. I'm guessing she voted nay on it, but I'm guessing it's also one of those ones where just enough Democrats voted yay that it went through.
I'm offering a solution.
Convenient
which
how
is
that
to
keeps
say to
happening.
These companies either lower the rates or lose your federal funds. Look, I voted for the infrastructure bill. I secured funds for us back here in Michigan. I want to do more of that, passing the largest climate bill in the history of this country. Donald Trump's trying to erase it. We need a science-forward agenda, delivering for us, meeting the moment for who our families are.
Notice
what our
how she just
children
used
deserve,
platitudes and nothing
that's why I'm running for
definitive
United
or
States
concrete.
Senate.
Hannah, we have an answer from Dr. El-Sayed as well.
Anna, thank you so much for such an important question. I just want to speak directly to what's happening right now. You've got DTE, which is the biggest spender in our entire politics. They spend on 93% of the entire elected state legislature, as well as most of our congresspeople, including my colleague here. And that allows them to get away with things like building one of the largest hyperscale data centers in our state in ex parte approval. Now, that's fancy terms for saying approval without actually going through the normal process. And this is going to increase the load on our grid by
Ex parte approval, by the way, kind of goes hand in hand with what I've been talking about with them signing NDAs. They'll sign NDAs with city councils and with people who are in government who make the actual decisions on where you can put data centers and how to do the special permitting for that. Because that's such a big project. The city itself or the county or the whatever has to approve the permitting for it. They'll do NDAs and then they'll do this ex parte decision making to basically say we've decided this without having a formal hearing, without doing public notice, which is normally required for special permitting and zoning. And meanwhile, they're all taking a cut from it, and they can't talk about it because they've signed an NDA.
more than twice. Now, we just lost our power for 5 days in a row because of a mid-level storm. We need to do a lot better. To me, it's about transparency in policymaking. People should not be able to take that money and then turn the other cheek and then allow for these approval processes that aren't approval processes at all. I still have yet to see a plan from DTE about how they're going to improve our reliability while doubling, more so, the amount of electricity they're expected to provide for a data center that nobody asked for. I put out a terms of engagement because these data centers, that was one of 15 that proposed last year alone. We need.
The other thing is these data centers don't help Michiganders because they're not providing a lot of jobs. Like most data centers, it's a storage place for hardware, and it runs off of basically just speculative asset creation. But it's mostly the hardware, graphics cards, and CPUs that they're using, not actual people. So it's not even providing jobs for the area, which is normally what businesses would use in the past to say, this is why you need to support this, yada, yada.
To be serious about the incoming threat that's going to make all of this so much worse.
Thank you both, and thank you, Hannah, for your question. I want to address both of the candidates, and by the way, we are going to get to some text message questions as well from all of you at home. But I want to talk specifically about your campaigns, and I think it's noteworthy that one of the reasons we're doing this debate is to contrast the two of you, where you stand on so many issues, but also on how you go about doing your business, how you campaign. Dr. El-Sayed, I'll begin with you. The Democratic Socialists of America have not made an endorsement in this particular race, but when you go to a rally, and we've covered so many of them are from that organization. Who are you when it comes to your political stripes? Many people call you progressive. Some have accused you of being a socialist. Not that that's a bad word, but people have said that about you. Where do you stand on your politics? How would you describe your politics?
This guy.
Rup, I'm a doctor and a scientist. I want policy solutions that actually map to the problems that we face. My governing experience is rebuilding a health department in the city of Detroit, leading Wayne County's Department of Health, Human, and Veteran Services. We had to go in there and work with a diverse community to be asking what are the challenges we face and how do we actually solve them.
Here's what comes off a bowl of strawberries when you drop this device in the water. These berries are fresh from the store and already rinsed under the tap, but within 10 minutes the water changes color. What floats to the surface will change how you feed your family.
We were able to identify the fact that our county ranked the number 8 for medical debt nationwide, and we could eliminate that for a penny on the dollar. So we set aside $7 million to erase up to $700 million in medical debt. When kids couldn't get glasses, 30% of them would get tested positive for needing glasses and wouldn't get a pair. We put optometrists on vans outside of schools so that as soon as a kid got a positive test, they go out, get a full optometric exam, and get a pair of glasses delivered within 2 weeks of a vision test. Now, working with a diverse community of people, you come to realize that not every solution fits the same way. You've got to be thinking about a solution in the right way. When it comes to the question of socialism, I'm not a socialist. I'm just a capitalist who understands how capitalism works. The biggest threat to capitalism was never the idea of government regulation. It was always monopoly. I want you to think about the stuff that you have to buy, whether it's your groceries and the number of stores you can go to, or it's buying a flight to see your grandmother, or it's picking a phone or a phone provider. You have like 2 or 3 options, and that shouldn't be legal, but that's the way our economy works right now. So I think government ought to be there to regulate on monopolies and oligopolies so that everybody can actually participate in an economy without having to be forced to pay more or get paid less for the work they do.
Congresswoman Stevens, another question about your campaign. We've seen just in the last few days, of course, Senator Sanders, we've seen AOC, and we've seen Elizabeth Warren just today, and they're all behind Abdul. These are the people who worked with you in the same room.
Hey, everybody hates you who worked with you. Should that be concerning?
That they're taking the outsider's side in this case? You have a minute and a half.
Well, I think that we should look at the fact that Brenda Lawrence, my longtime mentor and dear friend, Congresswoman from Oakland County representing Detroit, has been an early endorser of mine in this race alongside Governor Whitmer, Senator Stabenow, Senator Peters, who, like myself, has been recognized as the most effective lawmaker for...
Basically, a bunch of people that nobody's heard of, maybe people in Michigan, Whitmer, obviously, they're going to... versus these national figures that have worked with you regularly that hate you and are endorsing the other candidate. And yet you got some small fries that are like low.
Our state, but
if you've been working nationally for this long, you should have national endorsements.
Tell you what kind of
he should be the one with local endorsements. But it just speaks to the strength of his campaign.
Manufacturing geek, okay? I have visited hundreds of small to mid-sized manufacturing shop floors. I have operated CNC machines in my life previous to being in elected office. I have a deep passion for the bread and butter of our state and a unique understanding of it. So when Donald Trump and Mike Rogers go to lick the bootstraps of China and start a trade war with Canada, screwing us over and selling...
Go to lick the bootstraps of China. They're not. They're starting trade wars with China, which is something that she agrees with. So she tries to frame it like they are actually kissing up to China because she wants to take the anti-China position so she can take the pro-corporate position. Things like this are real obvious tell. You get somebody who comes in, they say, I'm anti-China. And it's like, what has China substantively done to the US that is harmful in the last 10 years? Like some minor trade policies that don't really affect us, but for those minor trade policies, they're also the manufacturing hub of the world, where we get most of our initial products and lower priced components for products. And yet she wants to position against them because she's getting paid by a bunch of corporations within the US who want to implement protectionary policies that are going to hurt the bottom line of regular consumers by basically forcing you to choose. It's these like capitalist free trade motherfuckers who, when free trade is on the other foot, they don't want to be step into it. So instead, they do protectionist policies that will cut out a section of the market that they can't compete with. They're all for free markets until they can't compete, and then all of a sudden rig the game in your favor with some political buyouts.
Us down the river, I will be standing up for us and securing things like what I did with the CHIPS and Science Act to deliver for
the one thing she can point to, and it's the thing that every Democrat voted for during Biden.
That is so very important to our future. Jobs for everyone, lower costs, and stop these abuses of power that are coming down from Trump and Rogers, who are treating it like the stock trading floor.
Congresswoman Hailey Stevens, Dr. Al-Sayed, we thank you so much for your time. We're not done at all. In fact, the debate is only halfway through. Our conversation continues. We have a lot of text messages. This bat phone's been blowing up when it takes some of your questions. The debate continues on our streaming platform, Fox Local. Here's what you do. Scan the QR code on the right of your screen. Go right to fox2detroit.com if that's easier on your phone, iPad.
It's wild to me that this guy's a Fox reporter.
The candidates will answer more of your questions.
It's local, so
from more of our studio audience as well. We've already received more than 700 text messages. We're going to comb
it's still crazy to me that he is so pro progressive candidates.
We'll see you in a few minutes.
If you can hear people talking but can't understand them, watch this.
Best way to hear clearly again at 75.
Thanks for staying with us on this special edition of The Pulse, streaming Hear from You. Scan the QR code on our producing studio audience, Hailey Stevens. Congresswoman, you bring back manufacturing jobs and secure longevity for the big three. Congresswoman, you had a chance to address this earlier. We're going to begin with Dr. Al-Sayed on what he plans to do.
Will you secure jobs for the big three companies and no one else?
Well, I'm grateful for the endorsement of the UAW. And they endorsed me because they understand that a pathway forward to bring back the manufacturing that we lost because of terrible policies like...
Notice he's endorsed by the auto workers. She's endorsed by the companies. Big difference.
USMCA, voted on by my friend here, is to make sure that we are thoughtful about actually regulating.
USMCA being the United States, I don't know, something. It was what Trump put into place after he tore down the previous trade agreement with Canada and Mexico under Obama. And it basically turned around into the exact same trade agreement that we already had with them because it made sense. It was just that Trump didn't like the fact that it was an Obama policy. And so he tore it down during his first administration and put back up the exact same trade policy so he could put his name on it. By the way, wasting months of time we could have been trying to deal with healthcare or any other issue.
Regulating the way that corporations and the top of corporations make decisions. Number one, I think we need to ban stock buybacks. This is this process by which corporations will literally buy their own stock to artificially raise their stock price, taking money away from the future of R&D and the workers themselves. Number two, I actually think that there's a pathway, unlike the stupid tariffs of Donald Trump, which is around-the-clock tariffs for everyone. I think that there's a place for targeted tariffs. If you think about free trade like cancer, I think we need some chemo. And the way that that would work is that they were transparent, specific, directed to particular product lines. And then number three, I think we need to massively invest in continuing to be the best place to make an internal combustion engine in the world, and also to invest in EVs and EV infrastructure. And I want to talk about what I mean by that. I don't believe in a mandate, but what I do believe is that you should be able to buy a $25,000, 300-mile range car brought to you by the big three. Why? Because that's the way that we're going to be able to create a product line that can compete all over the world with the kinds of cars that China is now manufacturing and eating our lunch on. But that means we have to invest in workers, and that really is the most important piece here. to lead if we're willing to actually think past the ridiculousness of the Trump administration into what the future can be and into how we continue to invest in workers, engineers, and a product line fit for the future.
Congresswoman, I know you have a lot of notes and a lot in your mind and heart about manufacturing, but does it disturb you at all that the UAW put their endorsement to Abdul when you've done all this stuff for manufacturing that you've talked about?
Look, I am so deeply proud to have a longstanding relationship with retirees and UAW members and to have 17 labor endorsements in this race by a long shot. And I'm also very proud to have receipts and plans. And I'll show you where I'm leading the charge. Costs are killing us in our manufacturing sector. All right, the trade war with Canada has sold us out. There are 1,000 Cleveland Cliffs workers, mostly in downriver, that are out of work right now. You know, Mike Rogers wants to rubber stamp all of this. The stakes couldn't be higher. November is 50-50. He said,
yeah, you'll only rubber stamp it if they need the extra votes.
He knows that I passed bipartisan wins for Michigan with CHIPS and Science to lessen our dependence on China.
Again, CHIPS and Science, that's the only thing that she's proud that she voted on, because the rest of it is just stuff that hurts them.
As a manufacturing hub. And look, Group,
or nothing, because most of it went to committee and didn't actually go anywhere.
The Obama administration, when our big three was on the line, particularly General Motors and Chrysler, and hundreds of thousands of manufacturing jobs across our state. That was a long time ago, but it was policy that worked. We cannot take for granted that this incredible state of ours, Michigan, is just one of a handful left in the country whose central economy, all the jobs, drive through manufacturing. I'm going to be the champion for that in the United States Senate, and I'm going to run through anyone and anything that gets in my way to deliver for us.
You know, one of the things and one of the reasons we wanted this debate to happen right now, just hardly, a week away from the big election, is because people don't always understand the differences between the two of you. Some of them are clear, some of them are not. So I'm going to ask you a question that is really mirrored in this text message from one of our Fox 2 viewers. And I think this is really a poignant question. Dr. Al-Sayed, I'll begin with you. What is the number one thing Senate Democrats are failing to do right now that you would do differently?
Well, number one, I just think the filibuster itself is anti-democratic. And we had an opportunity to break the filibuster. Now, let me just talk about what the filibuster is. The filibuster is a process by which all of the Senate can hide behind one senator who wants to filibuster, which requires a 60-vote threshold to break. And that means that you need 60 votes to pass something when it really should just be the majority number of votes. I oppose the filibuster. I think the filibuster has been anti-democratic for a lot of reasons. And once you get past that, we have the opportunity.
So the Senate, which already lets land vote instead of people, because there's two representatives for California and two representatives for like Missouri, despite the population difference being absolutely insane. That's what makes it an anti-democratic legislative body. Basically saying if you own land or in this part of the land, you get more of a say in like Wyoming than you do in California. And by having the filibuster, you essentially cement that as something that people can't get past to get laws through. So you need to have everybody in these small areas that own certain specific plots of land to agree with you rather than just getting the majority of agree.
To get money out of politics to take on Citizens United. We have the opportunity to put money back in pockets by doing things like passing the PRO Act to stand with unions like the UAW who've endorsed us. We have the opportunity to start changing and enforcing our antitrust policies so a few corporations can't pick your pocket at every turn. We have the opportunity to tax billionaires their wealth, and we have the opportunity to finally guarantee every single person in this country health care through Medicare for all. But we've got to get the democracy part of it right. And right now, the biggest risks to our democracy are the filibuster, it's anti-democratic at the Senate, and money in politics. The attack ads that you've seen, probably in the last commercial break itself, that change our political system. When you ask $60 million to come into a race for you and then say that somehow you're electable, I think you don't quite understand what electability means. If you need a $60 million crutch, you probably can't be elected on your own terms. So I would just say that you should probably, if you really want to beat Mike Rogers, find the candidate who is electable without having to ask for a $60 million crutch to do it.
Congresswoman?
Well, look, you talk about the senators who've come in here from the coast to campaign alongside Abdul. And I think one of the things they are really missing is what we need here.
Imagine trying to subtly call them coastal elites when you're taking like millions and millions of dollars from corporations and establishment dems. You're taking the money from coastal elites. They don't want Abdul elected because he poses a threat to their way of business, like insurance companies, energy companies, and not putting data centers in, things like that. Energy companies in being able to decrease regulations that would allow them to drive up the profit margins by putting all of Michiganders at more risk of more of these shutdowns like they had, was it 2 weekends ago or something like that? So disingenuous, but what do you expect?
In Michigan, an understanding of what makes our state tick, go and visit a small business. Go and talk to a Black-owned business. I know it's great to host rallies and have these fun events, but
I know it's great to have town halls and to talk to more Michiganders than I've seen in my entire life during one campaign, but have you been to a Black business before? Like he hasn't during this campaign? He's been on video the entire time. You can go look it up. He has.
Where I have gone in Michigan, I have taken the time to visit a minority-owned business. I want to see my bill.
A minority-owned business, just the one. She's visited one, guys. Don't worry. She's real inclusive.
So things like what we have on the Avenue of Fashion, which is a national best practice, that we can do that in Saginaw and Muskegon and Lansing. There's so much great economic development happening here, but our tax code and our tax dollars aren't working for us, which is why I have staked such a big part of my campaign on hope and equity so that every zip code gets equal investment. I have fought to bring these dollars.
I'll make sure to bring the data centers to every zip code. You get a data center and you get a data center. But did nobody ask for it? I don't really care. I'm doing it because I got paid to do it.
In Pontiac, and I'm darn proud of it. For the bridge and for youth recreation, we need to continue to do that across the state. And the people who aren't from here, who are so eager to campaign here, they should really come and spend some time with the residents and the people who I'm hearing from each and every single day. Look, there's a lot.
Probably
to be
because
proud
all of the people who campaign from her are out of state.
Could be doing.
Come here and check it out, guys. Come on.
I just want to make sure that the viewer had their question answered, because I think it was about what was going wrong in the Senate, and we got this conversation about why senators should come visit, which is actually exactly what they just did. But I just also want to just be clear about this, that at the end of the day, yes, you should go to small businesses. That's actually what we've done. We've also gone to 475 public events where we actually took questions from an audience rather than these baked and polished, made for a camera events that too often is the way that my friend has campaigned. And so, look, we do bring people in because we want to actually introduce them to Michiganders. And wouldn't it be better if one of our senators went to the Senate with colleagues ready to work with them on day one?
Well, I do want to ask you both about contrasting something that I think is really important right now. When we talk about ICE, this is something that obviously has seemed to kind of calm down a bit, but it's still fundamentally important to everyone who's watching right now. Congresswoman Stevens, where do you stand on ICE and the funding for ICE and where things should be going?
Well, I am leading the charge in the Congress right now to redirect $70 billion of your tax money, Michiganders' taxpayer money, that went to ICE at the expense of your health care.
By the way, she voted to fund ICE. She also voted on the bill nobody asked her to thank ICE in the middle of them killing people in Michigan. So, her acting like she's not pro-ICE is another disingenuous point.
At the expense of food benefits.
I'm taking away $6 billion of the $20 billion that we sent to them. Like, okay, great. Congratulations. Maybe you shouldn't have voted to raise their funding in the first place. Abdul al-Sayed wouldn't have.
Fits all things.
So instead of trying to patch up the issue after you've, created it, how about you just don't create the issue in the first place?
that I am hearing from Michiganders where they are experiencing pain points. We've got to redirect that $70 billion back into communities. I called for Kristi Noem to go. She was fired. But guess what? No reforms. Not a penny more for this rogue agency that is wreaking havoc. Look, I've talked to administrators at Harms Elementary in Detroit, parents who are afraid to drop their kids off for school because of these ICE raids. This isn't working for us. This is abuse of power. And I am standing up to Trump right now on these abuses of power, not shouting into a bullhorn, not getting in front of the first camera I see, but doing the hard work. That is what Michigan deserves. Look, my opponent here, Abdul, he is such a talented guy. He's written 3 books. He's had 300 podcasts. He's had all this attention. But the deal is we don't need a celebrity candidate. We don't need a celebrity senator. We need somebody who is committed to 6 years of hard, unglamorous work that's going to stand up to this junk that is wreaking havoc and causing chaos right before our very eyes. It's unacceptable.
All right, Congresswoman, thank you. Dr. El-Sayed, you heard Congresswoman Stevens there say, essentially, strip away some of the funding for ICE. Is that not good enough?
Well, she's also voted to raise ICE funding.
Oh, good. I'm glad he's hitting her on it.
That you didn't hear. 4 times voted to raise ICE funding. Voted to thank ICE, in fact. So this is the same kind of D.C. hypocrisy, I hate to say it, that we often see. Say one thing in front of a camera, do another thing. I said that we need to abolish ICE. ICE is not about immigration. ICE is not about the southern border. We can have a safe and secure southern border. We can also enforce immigration policy. But ICE is not about that. ICE is about normalizing paramilitary force on our streets. And I just want to push back on the idea that it's calmed down. I mean, I was just in Genesee County this weekend, and you had raids in Saginaw. People are scared to death, and we've got a congresswoman who tells
again, because he's out in the community while he campaigns, he can say stuff like this, whereas she doesn't get in front of a camera unless it's explicitly been endorsed by some of the people that are funding her campaign. So the fact that he's been out to, 470 events, and she's been to like maybe 200 during the campaign, A, says a lot about the energy going for his campaign versus hers, and B, it allows him to speak on what the community actually wants, like these ICE raids that just recently happened that he knows about that she doesn't even seem to know about within her own state, even though she's been representing them in Congress for the last, 4 years?
Thank ICE, called the people who work in ICE, I don't know, very fine public servants and other things when she went and visited herself. So I'm just saying that I do the thing that I say I'm going to do. I don't think ICE needs to exist. For the better part of our country's history, we did not have an ICE, and I think we can do a much better job when it comes to immigration without one. And here's the last thing I just want to say about this. When it comes to the question of immigration, we need Democrats who are going to stand up and actually talk about the great good that immigration has done for our country in the first place. The idea that somehow we can't say abolish ICE because we're so afraid of what they're going to say when we've seen ICE terrorize people in our streets, to me.
By the way, they're going to say the same thing whether you do or don't support ICE. They call, people communists when they have nothing to do with the communist ideology, along with socialists, same thing. Even if they're not proposing socialist policies, they'll still call them that. They'll call like friggin' Biden that. Kamala Harris a communist, even though she's not proposing anything remotely similar. So the idea that you need to change your rhetoric based on what your opponents, who are already batshit insane, are going to say about it is just nonsensical. But it's a line that the Democrats have been holding for a long time now. It's why like Kamala Harris wouldn't campaign on pro-trans agenda, even though they spent like $40 million on that one ad campaign, because one time she said, I'm okay with trans people existing, and they're like, how dare she wants to trans all your kids. So don't change your rhetoric. Why bother when they're just going to twist it anyway? If anything, lean into it and be like, I believe this is correct and here's why. And then you have something to fight off of, rather than just putting your back to the wall and letting them dictate the way the conversation is going. That's how you shift an Overton window, is by not saying anything about it and letting your opponents say everything about it.
is exactly the kind of cowardice that we don't need from Democrats. So yeah, I'm going to take the bullhorn, and I'm going to say that I think we need to abolish ICE because I am not afraid of what they're going to say about me.
Doctor, I do want to follow up, though, with both of you. Isn't saying abolish ICE like saying defund the police? Is that just busting the whole thing open? Or do you believe that in order to have enforcement, you need to have an agency that knows how to do it?
Yeah, well, I just also ran government agencies. And I know that when a culture of impunity sets into a government agency, it becomes almost impossible to take out. And so I think the agency as it exists does not need to exist. That's not to say that we are not going to keep our streets secure. That's not to say that
we have a border and customs agency that existed before ICE doing the exact same thing.
We're not going to enforce immigration policy. That's not to say we shouldn't have a safe, secure southern border.
The idea that we need ICE to do the same job, it's a redundancy. It should have been cut with those.
We didn't have ICE. We had INS, and they were targeted. They obeyed the laws of this land. They didn't terrorize people in places like preschools and parking lots. They didn't run up in schools and churches. They understood that their job, yes, was to enforce immigration policy, but they did it under the protection of the Constitution itself. And that's what we're losing here. You've got ICE agents who do not understand that the central law of this country is the Constitution itself. ICE has become a tyrannical agency, and I think there is no way to get past that except for to undo the agency and then build from scratch.
Congresswoman, you have been on video saying on social media before about the fine people of ICE. Do you feel differently about that? Do you
find psychopaths in ICE that kill U.S. citizens?
But there are good people working with ICE.
Roop, let me just be very.
And by the way, a lot of these people, like I believe it was Preddy or Renee Good, they look back on the guy and he was hired under like Bush. Like these people have been in ICE for forever. It attracts people who are zealously like racist, essentially. Because of course they would want to go into ICE and kick out all the brown people. Like it's a real obvious line to see why people who are extremely racist would join ICE in the first place. And those people have been there the entire time. They just haven't been at the forefront of the political discussion before. And now that they are, it's coming to light that like some of these people that have been there 25 years are the ones who are doing these shootings, who are hiding behind the guise of, some of these new untrained people. It's not always new untrained people. Some of the people doing the shootings are people who have been working there for years and years, and they've been this incompetent the entire time. They've been doing this to people in the background the entire time, just not at scale. Now they're being let free, let off the leash, and people fucking hate it. But they've been doing that for the last like 20 years.
Very clear. Complaints and slogans aren't solutions, all right? I went up to an ICE detention facility.
Abolishing ICE is a policy, not a
out and
slogan.
See why people were losing their lives, why they were being held for long periods of time without due process. This has been an outrage. And look, a lot of you remember Abdul.
It's an outrage that I fully endorse. I support with your dollar, and I will give them my endorsement in the Senate whenever they do a bill on it. And I want to tell them what good boys they are.
Work out. So he started the podcast, he wrote the books, and now he's running for Senate. And he's already bought the website for president. You know, it's just another rung on the ladder. That's not what this job is for me.
Oh no, he's paying $10 to hold a domain name in case he decides to run later.
This is about making sure that Mike Rogers doesn't get anywhere close to this seat. I'm the only one on this stage who has beat MAGA 4 times and delivered repeatedly for this state and for our values, for our rights and our freedoms. And I promise you, Michigan, I will make us shine.
Dr. Al-Sayed, there are people watching this right now, and every time they hear this podcast business, they're scratching
She's
their
just
heads.
thinking through, like,
food on the table, gas in the tank. They're curious to know what that's about. Have you
what bumper sticker slogan she needs to say next?
Yeah, I don't know. Like I told all the viewers at the outset that while my opponent was going to make this about me and her, I want to make this about you. Somehow she just really, you can listen to the podcast. It's there. Congresswoman, if you enjoy podcasts about public health, I welcome you to take a listen. You seem very concerned about that. I'm more concerned about the fact that people can't pay for their gas. They can't pay for their groceries. We're fighting a war that's cost us billions of dollars that has been pushed by the government of a foreign country, the same foreign country that the folks paying for your ads want us to send billions of dollars to. And that's the thing that I think Michiganders
isn't
really
that
want
weird? It's like the foreign government is interfering in our election.
They're worried about the fact
and
that
she doesn't
right
really
now,
care.
for a lot of folks, their kids go to schools that are unbecoming of their future. They are worried about the fact that they can't gas up their car because it costs, what, $4.50 a gallon? They're worried about the fact that the same corporations who funded your campaign are raising rates on the things that they can't go without, like their power. So I'd really like us to focus on the things that actually matter, which have nothing to do with the podcast, have everything to do with the future of Michiganders that we would like to serve.
Yeah, but it also is about transparency. And you have not released your full tax returns. $300,000.
Yeah, I'm transparently corrupt. You haven't released your tax returns.
Junk healthcare cures that
What a joke, dude.
would thumbs up. You talk about getting money out of politics and putting money in people's pockets, but still no one knows who's putting the money in your pocket. You know, I have been transparent, and I am offering, you know, real plans to address the cost of living crisis,
we want to be able to
tackle Donald Trump's
And you're talking about what you did, but you also made some accusations here. Dr. El-Sayed, that is a question that some people may have that Congresswoman's talking about. Talk about the money and the financial.
I mean, it's the only thing she has because she's brought it up
we released all of our
during every
Again,
question.
This is a distraction from the issues in your life.
But not
I'd love to talk about transparency. I really would. Because I want you to ask yourself, there is this group called the Center for Democratic Priorities. They didn't exist until they popped up and started running ads for my opponent. And then there's this other group called Center Forward that paid for a flight for the Congresswoman and her mother to go to Portugal. And they just released their donors, and then it's a whole bunch of shell 501c4 organizations. They're the folks who are literally putting money in our pockets right now to try and mis and disinform us about this race. And here's the thing about it. None of it actually makes your life better. Think about the $60 million that got spent in this race. What could $60 million do for a community in Detroit? What could $60 million mean for erasing medical debt? I'll tell you, $6 billion it could erase. But they want to spend it to get the Congresswoman elected. Why? Because at the end of the day, they know that they're going to have a safe seat doing their bidding instead of yours. Every single dollar that DTE is spending is a down payment on knowing that they can raise your rates. Every single dollar that Blue Cross Blue Shield spends in this race is a down payment on raising your premium.
All right.
Every single dollar.
Thank you, Dr.
That's great.
I want to ask some more questions from our audience at home right now. You're texting us. I got them right here. The next question is, how will you ensure low-income communities receive equitable and adequate education? You've heard so many people say Michigan ranks 44th when it comes to literacy for fourth graders. Let's start with Congresswoman Hailey Stevens. What are you doing now? What do you plan to do should you become senator?
Well, we are certainly being robbed by Washington, D.C. and Donald Trump, who treats the Oval Office like a stock trade floor. This is why I want to
Again, she went back to the same talking point that she did like 20 minutes earlier.
Or get famous or rich.
Probably if you look at her notepad, she's got like 4 slogans on it that she just goes back to.
Non-millionaire in this race. But let me tell you something about what I have worked on and what I am fighting for. Full funding for special education. You know, our public schools here in Michigan are getting the short end
Not regular
of the
education,
stick.
just special
And
education.
If we fully fund special education, we could meet the needs that a family in Royal Oak has talked to me about, where they feel torn about making sure that their child with special complex medical needs actually gets the education they deserve. This is also why we have to expand Medicaid, not just reinstate the cuts that Donald Trump cut. We have got to expand these programs. And I consider myself a warrior for public education. And this is also why I have written legislation and why I'm leading the charge to redirect grants to go into the profession of education, just like my father was. He was a first grade teacher in the city of Detroit doing reading recovery, in addition to running his small business. And so I want to see more people go into that profession, go into our public
Buck says
schools,
the small business was not so small.
That is going to certainly solve a lot of problems for us.
Dr. El-Sayed, you heard the Congresswoman say redirect grant money. Is that part of the solution here? What do you think?
You know, you asked a really
I think it is very telling that the question is how they'll ensure low-income communities receive equitable and adequate education. And the first place Hailey Stevens goes is we'll give you special education, because she thinks of low income people as stupid. And so naturally she goes to, well, yeah, we're going to make sure that we're going to give you guys your special education. I mean, I think that's really telling for what she thinks of Michiganders.
Important question about education. I'd like to answer that question. I'm proud of the fact that the American Federation of Teachers has endorsed me in this race. And they've done it because I'm a proud product of public schools. I know what it's like to walk into a public school in Detroit in January, and kids are bundled up because the boiler's broken, trying to learn how to read. You talk about a literacy crisis. How do you learn how to read when you have to wear a coat in the middle of the day? We put glasses on kids' faces specifically because we knew that it doesn't matter what's happening on the blackboard if you can't see the blackboard. But we need to radically rethink how we do public education in this country. We are not invested nearly enough. I want to tie the support for public education through the Department of Education, which, by the way, needs not just to be brought back, but fully invested in. I want to tie that funding to the Department of Defense. So when they try to raise the Department of Defense budget, we're going to make sure we're invested in public schools too. I also think that the way that we have funded local education, specifically school buildings, has too often ported the historical racism of the past. Right now, we fund school buildings based on property tax. Property tax is a function of property value. Property value is a function of who's been able to live where as a function of redlining from the past. And when we say that that same process should be patterning the social mobility of the future through public schools, that's a real problem. But I just want to say this. I actually agree with the Congresswoman on one really critical thing. We are being robbed. The money that we should have to invest in our schools is being sent to foreign governments to destroy other people's schools instead of investing in our own. And that is exactly what AIPAC wants you to do, and why they're spending so much money to get the Congresswoman elected.
Dr. Al-Sayed, Congresswoman, it's
a
one
good
point
turn
in
on
which
that
at
one
least
too.
Partially you agree on, as one of you will be taking on Mike Rogers. People want to know, what are the defining differences? This next question comes to us from a young person herself who actually is a student in Detroit, a college student. And we thank you so much, Kimora, for being with us here today. What's your question to the candidates?
Thank you. Good evening, candidates. My name is Kimora Riddick, and I'm a Wayne State University junior studying broadcast journalism. And my question is about the wildfires. So the wildfires from Canada deeply affected Michigan's air quality, especially in Detroit. What environmental measures are you planning to decrease the dangers of air pollution?
Let's start with Congresswoman Hailey Stevens.
Yeah, well, it is so great to have a student from Wayne here. I've just treasured working with that university in their science program and STEM education. And that is very much at the heart of why we need good climate policy,
Pandering,
not the
pandering,
junk science
pandering.
that we are getting from the Trump administration. And let me tell you what I think that looks like. One, we've got to cut the carbon emissions. We've got to lessen our dependence on big oil and gas. Investments like I secured in our clean energy future, so that from Marquette to Detroit, we were evolving and moving forward. You know, that has been stripped away by Donald Trump, and that's not right. But it's also not enough to just say, hey, we're going to go in there and just fight Trump. We've got to put forward our own creative ideas, which is why for 4 terms I've sat there on the science committee, securing resources, looking at alternatives for plastic and our supply chain. This is an opportunity for Michigan.
Remember that every bill that she sent, like 6 of them went to crossover, and then the other 120 went to committee and never came out as an actual bill.
Personality, she's talking about the things that we have secured in the United States Senate for Michigan, for our jobs and for our clean energy future.
Dr. Al-Sayed, clean air.
So when she talks about what she's done for clean air, she basically says Trump hasn't done enough and that we'll do more. And I've been on this committee that has talked about it and done it. And then you look at what bills she's proposed, what bills she's actually passed. They've gone to committee, they've gone to her, but they never got through committee and actually went into law, which is the thing that makes a difference on their lives. So what's the point?
Kamar, just be careful. If you become a broadcast personality, somebody might come after you. I just want to speak specifically to your question. I can tell you about what we've already done. We put air quality monitors all over Wayne County so folks can get real-time information about the air that they're breathing. Took on some of the biggest corporate polluters in our state when I was in the city of Detroit. Took on Marathon Petroleum, the biggest polluter and the most polluted zip code in the state, forced them to invest their own money to reduce emissions when they had wanted to increase them. The truth of the matter is that these wildfires are happening more often because it's drier and hotter than it has been in the past. It's drier and hotter because we continue to rely on fossil fuels for our energy. We need to get to 100% renewable energy. And the only way we're going to do that is by taking the Chevrons and the Exxons of the world out of our politics. Now, guess whose campaign they supported? Well, if you guessed my Congresswoman colleague, you probably
again,
guessed
DT
right,
Energy,
yes,
we looked at the oil companies that
campaign.
supported
So
her
when
as well.
You hear ideas of things that ought to be done, but they never actually get done. You should ask yourself why it doesn't get done. Well, because the people
why do they get killed in committee every time?
Selling oil.
Dr. Al-Sayed, Congresswoman, thank you so much. We have another text question, one of the many, many text questions. This one, I think, is important because, again, my main goal and our main goal at Fox 2, let's differentiate between the two of you. What are the big differences here? So what would you do on your first day in office? We'll begin with you, Dr. Al-Sayed. What would you do on your first day of office should you become senator?
Anybody who knows me knows that getting people health care is the passion of my life. I went to medical school only to realize that too often our healthcare system is part of the problem. We need and deserve guaranteed health care through Medicare for all. I have been thinking about this question. In fact, I've testified to the U.S. Senate twice. This wouldn't be my first time walking into the chamber on Medicare for all, guaranteeing health care, on eliminating the medical debt in this country, $225 billion. Now, on Medicare for all, there is work that we're going to have to do. We're going to have to get a president elected who can do it in 2029. Now, in the process, though, I actually think that we could eliminate all the medical debt in this country, $225 billion. Just so you understand what that is the amount of the GDP of more than half of U.S. states in this country.
And something that should be said about medical debt is erasing medical debt. I'm just going to move a frame forward so his face isn't doing that. Erasing medical debt isn't always a one-for-one. When we talk about $2 billion in medical debt, that can be erased for millions of dollars instead of billions of dollars, because most of the time what it is that's the marked up price that insurance companies have said they charge for it. And yet when you actually negotiate it down using something like a single payer healthcare system, the price of those goods and services is actually at cost millions of dollars, not billions of dollars. So when he's talking about the feasibility of reducing and paying that off, we could potentially be paying 10% or less on this. You hear it with all these stories of people who said, oh, I went in and I got charged, $10,000 for this procedure. And then if you do it on insurance, it was $100. And when they go and you find out in the back room, what happened is the insurance company had worked it out. So for them, it's only, let's say, $500, and then they charge you $100, like a fifth of the cost. And they were just marking it up because they basically wanted to squeeze you into bankruptcy. Once you're in bankruptcy, a lot of times medical debts actually get reduced once they go to a collections agency because they don't really care. They pay like 50 cents or less on the dollar for that debt, and then they'll reduce the price of it anyway because the price was never that high in the first place. So they don't care about selling the debt off for pennies on the dollar. It was just an imaginary number they made up because they were the only ones in the area who could provide that service in a timely manner that people needed it.
I want to offer medical debt relief to everybody. I think we could get bipartisan support to do it, and I'd love to get that done. And let's start working through Medicare.
Number one form of bankruptcy in the U.S. medical
money
debt.
Out of politics, so the big pharmas and the big insurances of the world aren't in the way when it comes down to finally getting this done for all Americans.
Congresswoman, in a minute and a half, tell us what you do on your first day in office.
Yeah, day one, we have to stand up to the abuses of power. Take it from somebody who has been recognized as our most
Take it from somebody who's abused their own power. We have to stop
the United States Senate and ban stock trading for elected officials, their spouses, their children, for our president and our vice president, and for candidates for those offices. I am going to get it done. I am sick and tired of seeing Donald Trump sell us out to the highest bidder, go cut deals with every other country except for.
Yeah, look at my campaign. I want to be the one to sell us out to the highest bidder, not Trump. I think she's just mad that he's doing corruption better than she is.
cutting deals for us here in Michigan. We have been paying the price, and it is not acceptable. And speaking of prices, day one actions to lower costs and to invest in small businesses, minority-owned businesses right here in Michigan. Those are your tax dollars, and I believe in the effective stewardship of them so that they go back to our communities here. And
she'll talk very glowingly about how she wants to reduce prices for businesses, not for individuals.
We got to make sure that the jobs of the future are coming from the place that we all love to call home, which is why my manufacturing agenda on day one will also be in the hopper. I got all the bills ready to go, Roop.
We have 30 seconds left for each of you.
All the bills ready to go to committee and not get passed again. That way I can come back in the next election and say I was going to do something that I didn't.
Well, poll after poll after poll has shown, despite what my colleague says, that I am the most competitive candidate to take on Mike Rogers. But it's also this, that you've got to have something you're fighting for. Ask yourself, if DTE funds both Mike Rogers and Haley Stevens, who
we'll look at the polling after.
And Blue Cross and Big Pharma and Big Tech and APAC, all funded by the same people. We need a choice. I'm the only candidate in this race who does not take corporate money. And so I offer a real contrast to a guy who has never seen a corporate dollar he did not want.
Congresswoman Haley Stevens, 30 seconds.
Well, look, Governor Whitmer, Attorney General Nessel, the chair of the Michigan Legislative Black Caucus.
She's going back to one of her 4 points. These three look for local people like me.
That I will stand up for us on day one, that I will beat Mike Rogers just like I have beat Republicans 4 times over.
Thank you so much. Congresswoman Haley Stevens, Dr. Al Sayed. The vote is now in the people's hands, a week away. A critical conversation happening on this stage that, yes, is local, but is national as the world is watching to hear what both of you have to say. We thank you for your time here today. We want to thank you for joining us in this special edition of The Pulse. If you missed any of the debate or the Republican
or Democratic gubernatorial
debates, you can watch all of them on fox2detroit.com or on our YouTube page. Stay tuned here on Fox Local. We're taking you inside the spin room where both of these candidates were answering questions from the media from across the country.
Versus Rogers poll. Let's see. This one. Never continue roll call. Yeah, I'm really going to trust like Jewish Insider and Reddit posts for my polling data. They seem to be the only ones putting these polls out. Notice that they're rushing around to get these. These polls out. Not that I really trust this one too much more, but yeah, Abdul Sayed favorable over other candidates. God, look at those unfavorability ratings, 44 and 40. A good amount of Michiganders. It might be too early after the debate for there to be actual polling of the debate. Fuck it, let's see what Fox News says.
Seeing ants around your home? Don't wait.
I'm not seeing any polling, just stuff on the debate here. This is mostly what I've been seeing, but this is also from the 8th, so this is like 20 days ago. And Abdul Sayed has only been increasing his popularity within Michigan, so I wouldn't be surprised if them being tied here doesn't translate to him being ahead now. That we're like a month forward from this, from that polling. There was one that was really interesting to me. Which was, maybe they'll cite it. No, they're not going to show their polling. Go back to the First Hill article on that first page there. Neck and neck. Here. Oh, yes. This was the one. This was the one, and I think it's dishonest of the Hill to be reporting this. Group. Because this group specifically endorsed Hailey Stevens. There's no down. Do they say within the article? Is that where it is? No, they're talking about the other endorsements. So the poll that they're citing right here from the Glengriff group that has Hailey Stevens up 10 points specifically endorsed Hailey Stevens. Pollsters known for being very, very non-biased apparently while they're endorsing one of the candidates that they're running polls on. Not only that, the polling was conducted via phone. They didn't use any texting, any emailing, any other mediums. So this is mostly appealing towards people who are older, who are going to use the phone regularly and be able to be reachable regularly by phone. Probably aren't working as much based on when they're able to hit them. And so all in all, this 10-point difference that we're seeing from a very biased poll, I just don't buy it, frankly. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they just made up the numbers whole cloth, but. And they still have Hailey Stevens barely edging him out. That's insane. But yeah, it was a good debate. Overall, I think that Al Sayed did a fantastic job during this. Stevens is just not a very personable person. Which is funny because you keep seeing Democrats saying, oh, we're warming up to her. We're warming up to her. Well, you're warming up to her because she's not very charismatic. Something you want in a political leader is for them to be charismatic because they need to move people over to your side to be able to get popular support to pass the things that you're trying to pass. And so this idea that we should pick people that aren't very good at their job before they even get in office is stupid. Part of what made Obama effective, I don't agree with all of his policies that he put out, but one of the things that made him effective is that he was charismatic. He would sway the public opinion on certain large issues enough that then they could push their policies over the line and actually get them implemented, which is something Al Sayed can do that Hailey Stevens cannot. She is not a personable person. People don't like talking to her. Think in that debate, the way she was talking, if you had to sit in a room with her for like an hour, you'd be pulling your hair out. You'd be going insane, dude. I almost went insane just listening to it for half that debate. So the idea that she's going to be able to actually lead on anything is laughable. It's borne out in her policy record, as well as in her OpenSecret.com showcasing that she had to have be crutched up by like basically every PAC in her state, as well as like APAC and some things from out of her state, just to have a chance in this election, in this primary. She's not more electable. She's not going to make a better senator. And I'm really hoping that Michigan goes for El Sayed, because I think he will absolutely destroy Rogers in the general. And he'll have better policies. So he'll be a better stepping stone towards a more democratic system in the future, especially as we approach these midterms where we're probably going to see a blue wave based on pushback from the all the bad stuff that Republicans have been doing, from ICE to the war in Iran to Venezuela, and way more stuff than we have time to even get into. So thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, please drop a like, subscribe. Anything helps out the channel. Drop a comment and let me know what you think. But thank you so much for your time, and you have a wonderful day.